Hello, everybody. I'm back finally with part two of, I guess, what I'm thinking of as my um exploring or discovering new to me Black American art series, which started with me listening to and reacting to the entire um first album, self-titled album by Brandy, which was awesome. I loved it. It's incredible. I genuinely couldn't believe that at 35 years old, I had gone my entire life up until that point without having heard that record. And that video is on my channel, and got some nice comments on it from people who enjoyed my reaction and appreciation of that record. And I am planning to do more music soon. But I'm trying to cover like multiple mediums, and so like I know that there are a lot of classic, great Black American films that I've not seen. It's funny. I feel like at any given time, I could always name off like so many that are on a list of like, oh, I know I should see this, and it's just one of those things. It's like you always have it in the back of your mind, but like when do you make time to get around to it? Um, and I have here, I watched this movie for the first time recently, just like with my first time listening to the Brandy record. As I said, this is all stuff. Ideally, these videos they are all about art and media that I have never viewed or digested before. It's completely new to me. And here I have notes for my first viewing of Mario Van Peebles' New Jack City, which I've been well aware for almost my entire life that I've been cognizant of popular culture that it is um, a iconic, classic, highly regarded um, crime thriller, and you know, my understanding is it is like a part of kind of quintessential uh, Black American filmmaking, um, and uh, especially I think growing up listening to hip hop and rap music. Always my entire life, I had heard rappers reference the movie and even refer to themselves as Nino Brown, which I mean, obviously, like I know how it is, but like I think especially after watching the movie, I'm like, damn, y'all are really really being like, I'm that guy, because he I mean, he's like the kingpin for sure. Like he's running shit for sure. And in a lot of ways, he has those sort of street fantasy, rapper fantasy sort of things, the money, power, respect, all of the stuff like that. But he sucks. And the movie, the movie really leans on the fact that he fucking sucks. Um, but I mean, it is what it is, product of his environment, sort of thing. And but I think it that leads me to I think my first um reflection on the movie is that like after having some more time to think about it, because I think I watched it for the first time like a week ago, and I've just been busy because I'm actually unemployed right now and very actively job searching. Um, and After having had more time to think about it, the thing that came to mind is that I felt like the way that the movie was like structured and presented, and like the tone and a lot of the stylistic choices really lended itself to the movie having like like a fable like quality, sort of like an archetypal story with very like bold representations that, very much like teaches a clear lesson, and it's like very understandable and approachable in this way that doesn't mean that it's simple in any way, the message of the film, but that it is like inherently human and kind of presentable to anybody, and that it has that sort of like classic tale, sort of like fable, um, sort of storytelling. That's how I felt after the more time that I had to think about it. But like a modern fable for its the time that it came out, um, because yeah, like at the time, it when it came out, I should double check. I think it was 94, or let me double check right now. Um, New Jack City, 1991. Sorry, so even earlier, 1991. The year I was born. I'm 35 years old. Um, yeah, so it's like a very you know, topical, um, you know, socially aware movie of the issues of that time. Um, you know, um, Inner city living conditions, crack epidemic, um, you know, uh, institutional racism and uh, you know, income inequality and all of those things. The the societal climate and atmosphere, and what creates ghettos, and what creates crime, and the way that it really like affects and shapes human beings. And so, okay, I have a pen so that as I'm going over talking points, I can check things off to make sure that I'm not forgetting any of the things that I took note of. Um, First thing that came to mind, just, I think I'm like pretty into film. I'm not like the most knowledgeable person. Um, but I do feel like often when I watch movies, I can appreciate the storytelling, and I can also appreciate like sort of the actual like film making, like shots, camera work, sort of the tactile, hands-on, how the film was made, by people, the choices that were made. And so the first scene where Nino Brown is like hanging the guy off of the bridge, like our first introduction to him as a character is like looking up at him. He's like this imposing figure. I think naturally when you do that, when you have the camera looking up at him, and he's exhibiting control and poise, and you're looking up at him from the POV of the person that's in danger, that automatically sets up his character in a certain way. And then the next scene, the chase scene between Ice-T and Chris Rock, the camera is following them looking down, and it even starts, sorry, before the chase scene, when you get introduced to Chris Rock's character, it's the camera is looking down, directly down, panning over, these like densely crowded streets of like old busted down cars, garbage cans, people shuffling around, the dense, you know, um, crowded atmosphere of that street, of that kind of neighborhood. And so you go from like being introduced to Nino, looking up at him, imposing figure, and then, you know, when you cut back to this neighborhood where he's from, the camera is looking down at everything, which then you just view the space and you view what's going on like in a different way because of that angle, that point of view. And you know, it's like a, I think like a smart way to juxtapose things in the beginning of the movie as the tone is being set. And I also like definitely noticed pretty early, like in the exchanges in that second opening scene between Ice-T and Chris Rock, these very close up, tense, claustrophobic shots that really like I think sometimes I've perceived that people who don't grow up in neighborhoods where there is a genuine threat of danger, that they don't understand why some people behave in ways that they seem like quick to go. You know what I mean? Like it's like they seem, tense, or very alert, and potentially they're perceived as more confrontational. But I think these like close up intense kind of camera angles, and they're even like tilted a little bit where it's like not level. Then like in the frame, Ice T's head is tilted one way or the other because of the camera. It's a skewed view, and it's like it is that it's a tense and dangerous environment, and I think those shots and those camera angles are, you know, putting the viewer into that sort of um that feeling that it is tense and uncomfortable, and you have to be like unsure of what's going on, and it makes you more alert, because it's what's going on is dangerous. What's going on around you is dangerous. And then next up, really cool sequence that I'm excited to talk about is the POV shot of Nino and his friends going into the club for the first time, where Flavor Flav is performing on stage, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's seen in like multiple club sequences of the movie. And I don't know if all of Public Enemy is in the movie, but I specifically remember obviously pretty iconic look seeing Flavor Flav in there a few times. And but that POV shot walking into the club, sort of, the doors opening, that dark silhouette of the doorway coming through, all the people eye level, the shuffling through the crowd and stuff. Like it really it reminded me a lot of uh of kind of the sequence. Well, it's not a POV sequence actually, now that I should mention that, but like the sequence of Henry Hill and Karen going into the Copacabana for the first time in Goodfellas. That long, single tracking shot behind them as they're winding through the hallways, and he's introducing her to everybody, and then they get sat out in the front, and she's like, "What do you do?" um, and but yeah, it kind of reminded me of that immediately, because I think I think the movie has a lot of great choices in camera work that are putting the viewer into an environment, that they're unfamiliar with, that they don't know, and helping them understand through the way that the camera work and the structure of these scenes, how they're presented to you, how it makes you feel and how it puts you there, and can help you sort of like see things the way these people see them and feel what they feel to an extent. Let me just make sure I'm checking off some things that I've talked about. Okay. So many good, incredible quotes in this film that I realize that I know again that I realize I've like heard rappers say my whole life. But some of these things are like, I guess colloquially, I don't know if certain lines that from this movie that I've heard rappers use, if it's specifically from this movie, or if this is a thing that like people used to say in the 80s and 90s in these like what I perceive as New York neighborhoods. Like I don't know if it's like if this was like a thing that was like written into the movie that is like a quote from this movie, or if it's just something that people would say. I don't know. But in the first like business meeting that they have, Nino Brown and everybody, when they're talking about setting up the project operation, taking it over, and he says, "Send his fat ass a lullaby," and then the girl in the group goes, "Rockabye, baby." That shit's hard. That's hard. Um. Oh, and then yeah, after that, then you get the montage of them setting up their operation in the projects, and the montage is over that a cappella group, and that was incredible. I think like one of the best montages I think I've ever seen in a movie. Because the montage is like a very like classic filmmaking storytelling motif of like a section of it's like a bridge in a song. You know what I mean? It serves an explicit purpose to move you through. And yeah, I just thought it was like a really good one with the acapella group in the background. And the uh there's a shot in the montage where um it's like a super close up image of all the crack vials on the table, like really close up, right? And then like layered, it's like superimposed on top of it, it's this layered image also of Nino Brown getting fitted in white suit a white suit, you know what I mean? And it's like just it's a great image of like this is what makes him powerful, this is what gives him his status, this is where he gets his money. he's he's made from crack. That's his empire. You know what I mean? And that shot was great. And it's one of those things where it's like I'm sure people would say, "Oh, it's like really on the nose or tongue in cheek or whatever." I would disagree. I think sometimes doing the thing that is might maybe seem obvious, but if you can do it the right way, in an artistic way, then it's like just classic. You know what I mean? Like classic things are sort of like something that you can expect, but it doesn't inherently make them cliche. It's about the way it's presented, it's about the way it's done. And I thought that montage and especially like that layered, superimposed shot was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Super smart, I felt like. Um and you know, moving forward from the talking about the acapella group in that scene, with um, with all the club sequences in the movie, as well as like the montage with the acapella group, and you know the score, music I think is so integral to the story and the tone of the film overall. Like I think the music, carries so much weight in this film, um, which like makes a lot of sense. I think it's also like it's like this shared representation of how integral, you know, um, I think black music is in their experience, how people express themselves and their identity and their experiences, how that stuff is like shared, like music, it's, obvious to me that it's like such an integral part of also like how people, commune and celebrate and enjoy themselves also, you know what I mean? And so that being represented so heavily in the film and being a very important part of what carries the narrative of the film and sets the tone and the style in a lot of ways. um yeah, makes perfect sense. And it's something that really stuck out to me in the film is the way that music was used, scenes of music that are just like injected into the film, not just like music playing over a scene, but showing the a cappella group all these sequences where they're in a club and there's music being performed and people are dancing. Um, Also, visually, I think like the visual tone of the film, something that I noticed about like maybe two-thirds of the way through was that there's a lot of dramatic lighting. Um, these big suits that they're wearing, Nino Brown and his crew, and just very like strong silhouettes in terms of like just like costume design and the way people are positioned in shots. It's very like bold visually, and it gives a lot of it like this larger than life quality, you know. And I think this goes back to sort of the movie being like a fable to me, because it's like it is like very dark and intense subject matter. There are several sequences of the film that are very sad, very dark, about the way that the crack epidemic is destroying people's lives, and it is this blight on the community, bringing people down. And yet, for Nino Brown and his group, his people, that's like their that's like their opportunity for social mobility to build themselves up. That's like what they feel like they have access to have power and to have control when they otherwise would not. um and yeah, like I think all of that, heavy dramatic lighting and shadows and the big suits, strong silhouettes, it sort of also gives it like a somewhat of like a noir vibe. It's sort of like a different, like an older visual palette sort of, that it is so kind of like bold and striking that like there's kind of like an underlying statement being made visually with those choices. And it's sort of, as that tone is carried throughout the film, that style is carried, it becomes like a sort of subconscious influence in for the viewer of, as these scenes build up one after the other. um Chris Rock, great, incredible performance. Really surprised, honestly. I thought Chris Rock was amazing in the movie. Um, and it's not a particularly like, I don't want this to sound the wrong way. It's like not a particularly like deep or nuanced character study per se, but I think that like he really embodied it and like brought a lot to it, and that his character really like shined in a way that a lot of the other characters didn't in the film, which I attribute to his strong performance. Like I think, as much as I love Ice T, and God forbid if he ever saw this and heard me say it, but like, um, like in the movie, I think his, has he being one of the major characters, his acting is a little stiff, um, and for instance, Nino's character is like so larger than life. He's sort of like almost not like a person, but like a figure and a symbol. You can't really like relate to him much, I think, in the movie. And the movie doesn't try to make you relate to him, I don't think, either, which I think is kind of an important part of the story being told, is that is kind of your inability to relate to him. Um, and so I think, uh, I dropped my pen. Um, I think Chris Rock's character, and the arc of that character is one of the, I think like the standout character and standout performance of the film. And I thought it was really great. Also, I think obviously I forget the character's name, but it's like Nino's right hand guy who he ends up shooting towards the end of the movie. Spoiler alert for a movie that came out in 1991. I'm so sorry if you haven't seen the film. But if you haven't seen the film, which you should do what I did and you should watch it immediately because it's awesome. Um, it's the meme, the meme of Wesley Snipes holding the gun and crying. because he's got to shoot his friend. Which it is actually really sad, but in the context of the meme, I always remember it as being like, um, I feel like it was a meme that came from like Black Twitter that was like me during the race war when I have to shoot Tony Hawk. It's a great joke, dude. Um, and then yeah, like finally seeing the context of where that image and that meme comes from, it is sad, but it just further kind of alienates you from Nino in any way. The movie just continues to push it. Like there are lots of movies that like Scarface, Goodfellas. I feel like a lot of crime movies create a sort of like they bring you in to the lives of the criminals and they help you to understand in such a way that like it's an anti-hero sort of thing in a lot of cases where it's like yeah what they're doing is bad but you come to like understand it and you're like well you know you shouldn't have fucked with them. Like maybe at a certain point in the film you're like well I mean he had to kill that guy right he was like playing with his money. What was he gonna do? Of course he was gonna kill him, things become rational. And but I felt like New Jack City really like I felt like it did the opposite, where I feel like it really just continually pushed Nino Brown further into this territory where he was just like a bad guy that you couldn't relate to, you couldn't sympathize with at all. And uh not to say obviously like I don't the movie does not make me like sympathize with police at all. Like this is not, I didn't perceive this movie as being like pro cop, and anti like, you know, um sort of just about like crime and black neighborhoods. Like it's not no pun intended, it's not black and white like that, Like uh anyways, I think I'm losing my point a little bit. But another incredible line. My next note on the page. And I know this line from a Freddie Gibbs song. I don't remember which song, but I can hear his fucking voice saying it in my head. And as soon as I heard it in the movie, I was like, he said it. He said the thing. Sit your $5 ass down before I make change. Pretty tough. And again, that's one of those things where I'm like, is that like a line from this movie? Is that a reference to the movie? Or is that some shit that like your uncle or your older next door neighbor would say to you as a kid if you grew up in one of these neighborhoods and you were acting up showing your ass? Was this just something that people said? I don't know, but sit your $5 ass down before I make change. Slick. um oh, another good one. It's like they talk about killing a guy in it's the meeting after the project gets taken down, after the whole Chris Rock's character dies and their whole initial project operation gets shut down and they're having that meeting at Nino's place after at the long table. Um, and he says, Nino, I think either he just killed a guy or like beat him up or like roughed him up or something. Did something violent and then he was like breathing heavy and he's like, I never liked that pretty motherfucker anyway. This is really funny. I felt like I never liked that pretty motherfucker anyway. Um, um, Oh, and the scene where they get um where hold on, let me try to remember. I wish I had done this sooner. In some ways, I feel like the time between when I watched it and recording this helped me digest the film a little bit better, but also there are certain little details that I think um like I've lost track of. And in future videos for movies, I should probably maybe watch it, give myself some time to think about it, and then watch it again before recording the video. Um, But the scene where I believe it's the cops, it's Ice-T and the other guy um meeting with the mob guy who like they cut off his ponytail. Um they meet with like the Italian mob younger guy and they're meeting him in like an alley and the scene is presented through like a shadow. Like you don't see them, you're seeing, you know, heavy lighting on like a brick wall and their shadows, their silhouettes talking to each other against this brick wall. That's just great. It's good stuff, okay? Like it's once again something that maybe taken out of context of the film, maybe to some people would be considered, oh, that's kind of like maybe I don't know if people would think that it's like cliche imagery or something like that, but it's not. Like it's used very well, very like like a smart stylistic choice. And again, like I think a lot of the movies like smaller choices throughout all these themes really sets like an iconic tone visually to the film along with the way that music carries a heavy presence throughout the film. It's a very memorable film, which means a lot. Like some movies are just fucking forgettable, and how good can a movie be if you don't remember it that well? You know what I mean? Um, and then this is the end of my notes. I got one more. What an incredible ending. So- Oh my god, it's so good. Like and really like I honestly like I have goosebumps. I don't you can't really see them, but I have goosebumps thinking about it. But like so they go through the trial, Nino Brown's on trial, and it seems like, he's gonna go to jail for like a year and then he's gonna be out. And like that's like the real nightmare is that it's like sure Nino is a bad guy. He's the bad guy. But what's the real bad guy? The fucking American criminal justice system, it's bullshit. You know what I mean? Um and it's like, even when the cops are playing by the rules and doing supposedly what's right, the American criminal justice system fails the black community. And like that is the true evil. You know what I mean? That Nino is just like a pawn in, Um, and then he says that. Nino says it to Ice-T's character at the end, and he's like, it's the law, baby. You know? Like the law was on his side in this situation. And in that initial moment, there was nothing else that Ice-T's character could do. And then he goes out, right? And he's on this big win. And he's like, you know, he's he's flexing, to all these reporters. And he's like, yeah, he's like, glowing in this moment, like, I got away with it. I'm on top. And I think the thing that sticks with me most about this movie is when that scene where he's talking to the reporters and he's kind of gloating about his victory and he says, I'm proud to be an American. And it's just like that is so dark. Like it's so dark, honestly. Like his perception of himself and what just happened, you know, like what happened in the previous scene, and his perception of himself and his perception of the society that he's in and him being like proud to be an American, smug. He's like, I'm the American dream. I've exploited people, I like my wealth is built on the back of other people's suffering. And then when I was to be held accountable for that, the system in America bailed me out because what's important is that I have money and money is power, you know? Um, and that's I don't think I'm reading into it too much. I think it's incredibly profound that he says that in that scene, that he says, I'm proud to be an American. And then, oh my God. And then the old man who is in several previous scenes throughout the movie, a minor character in several scenes throughout the movie, an older gentleman in the neighborhood who's like, you're a piece of shit. Look at what you're doing to your own people. Blah, 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 blah. You know, in a couple of different scenes of the film, he's like, this old man in the neighborhood's like, fuck you. You know, he appears in the crowd of people, brandishes, takes his piece out, and goes, idolater! Your soul is required in hell. And then just blasts him. Nino, slung to the chest, instantly recoils, eyes wide open. And it's like surprisingly like it's kind of dramatic, but it's like not that dramatic. Like it doesn't give Nino this like I feel like it doesn't give him like a glorious death. Like it's like he's just like put down, you know? Like he gets shot, he physically recoils, you see his eyes jolt, and then the camera just watches him fold over the banister and just fall. You know, it cuts over to Ice-T's character, and his face is just like, damn, you know, like, damn, like that just happened. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of in shock and not necessarily satisfied, just like, you know, and that's it. And Nino's dead in his like this proud moment where he thought he was untouchable and on top and proud to be an American. And it's a classic sort of, again, fable kind of thing, classic story of pride comes before the fall. And yeah, he got bodied by the old man. He got fucking blasted. That's the way it is. You know, you never know. You never know who's waiting to catch you slipping. Old man caught him out in the open, no vest. It was a wrap for Nino right there. And that's a wrap on the movie. That's the end of the movie. It's so good. That's such a good ending, you know? Like I feel like I'll always remember proud to be an American, followed by idolater. Your soul is required in hell. One of the hardest fucking lines of dialogue, quotes I've ever heard in a movie. That's fucking hard as shit. Like who wrote that? Mario Van Peebles, if he wrote that. That is like, it's so memorable. That's fire. Who else knows the that other meme where it's like the YouTube reactor thumbnail, the guy with the glasses, and he's like, "Hold up, his writing is this fire?" That's that. That's idolater. Your soul is required in hell. That's crazy work. Anyways, once again, like with the Brandy record that I reviewed, um, what time is it? Okay, I'm good. Um, like I'm not rating any of these things. These videos are not intended to be reviews in any way. It's really just like me talking about some art, some pieces of media through my first encounter with them, my first experience with them, and you know how they hit me, how I digest them, what I appreciate about them. That's it, you know. And so, but I loved this movie. You know, again, it was one of those things where I was like, I can't believe it took me so long to see it. Um, and very memorable. And I can understand why it's had such a big impact on lots of different aspects of culture moving forward from when it came out. and why it's referenced so heavily. Um, and but yeah, I mean, Wesley Snipes is incredible. Ice T, awesome. Chris Rock was awesome. The music was awesome. Um, yeah, really, really cool movie. Incredibly poignant for its time and like still exciting to watch, still memorable to watch, and still sort of unfortunately in America, the movie still makes a lot of sense. Like for things that still happen that are still going on. Um and Yeah, also I think, that's a great quality of any art or media, a film, an album or whatever, is standing the test of time, you know. People can watch it when it comes out and be like, "Whoa, this is awesome." But then like what about 20, 25 years later? When somebody from another generation kind of watches it for the first time and they're still like, "Whoa, this is really good," you know? And the style of this movie resonates with me and its message resonates with me, that's a big deal that not all art has, you know? So there are more video game videos coming, obviously. Um, I'm always going to be playing video games and making videos about that. This is like part two of an ongoing series for me that will be mixed in with video game stuff. Um, this is my first movie, New Jack City. First video was Brandy's first self-titled album. The next video, I probably will be music again. I think the next movie that I want to watch is Malcolm X by Spike Lee because I've never seen it, which I know is crazy. I know it's crazy that I've never seen that movie. Also because She's Gotta Have It is one of my favorite movies. I saw it in my like early 20s. I think I was 21 years old the first time I saw it. And I was like blown away. I thought it was incredible. And I had never seen anything like that. Um, and yeah, considering how much like I love that movie, I'm surprised that like I myself had never kind of taken the time to watch the rest of Spike Lee's movies. Spike Lee has a lot of movies that I haven't seen on it, honestly. But I think the next movie that I'll do for this series is Malcolm X, starring Denzel Washington. But the next video for the series that I'll do will probably be another album of uh, music. Maybe Luther Vandross, because I don't really know Luther Vandross's music at all. I feel bad saying that, but obviously I'm trying to learn. Uh, if anybody watches this and you have recommendations of which Luther Vandross record I should listen to for the first time, experiencing his music, please let me know in the comments. I'm I want guidance. Um, but okay, that's it for this video. New Jack City was awesome. I loved it. If anybody's watching these videos, thanks. It's, I'm doing this on YouTube because I want engagement with people. I want to like talk to people in the comments and just sort of like I see it as like a sharing sort of thing. I want to share and with other people and have them share back with me, and that's what's cool about it. I see YouTube as like another form of social media, but where I can be a little bit more creative. Um, and Yeah, so thanks for watching. Subscribe, I guess, if you want more of this shit. Love you.